Hey folks, this is the continuation video of the build series on the Emmaselle 1. If you don't know much about the Emmaselle 1, it is an aircraft I built many years ago. Had over 1,300, I think 50 some flights on it. And I was asked if I could do basically a video build series so you knew how I build the airplane, okay? So, whoops. I want to go to that one. So basically, this is the third video. The first video was an overview. Second video was design. And the third video is about me building the fuselage. Okay, the construction of the fuselage. Sorry, I'm a little bit tongue-tied tonight. It's very late. So if you are new to my channel and you don't know me, I love to build giant scale airplanes that are radio control. And this airplane had a 197-inch wingspan. It weighed 71 pounds-ish and had a Hacker A100 in it, which pulled about 6,000 watts. The airplane, there's a rumor that it crashed, and it never crashed. I did have an all-field landing one time where I bent the landing gear, but I've discussed that in other videos. And basically, it's in storage right now. It's in my attic. And it's going to be there until I build floats for it, because that's the next big upgrade on it, is put it on floats. Before I get too far into this, I want to talk about my awesome sponsor. It's rtlfasteners.com. If you go to their website and you buy more than $50 worth of product and you use a super top secret code DA30, you'll get 30% off your order. Okay? So as just a really quick recap on this, and now I am going to make this the full screen. So originally this airplane was going to have a 150cc 3W gas engine in it. It was my idea of what a vintage airplane would look like if the EAA was around 1919-ish, the year. Open structure fuselage, rigging, sew on fabric, all the neat things. Had to be built as cheap as I could. The design started in 2005. The first wood cut was cut in the very end of 2005. All that information there I've covered in other videos, but I'm just trying to give you a little bitty recap before we get to the fuselage. And generally the airplane was going to be a 192 by 125. It ended up being 197. It was the first airplane I designed in 3D and then exported everything as DXFs, which I actually do that different nowadays, and I've talked about that in other videos. So I wanted the fuselage to be just super simple. Okay, this whole aircraft I was trying to build as cheap as possible from materials I bought at hardware stores or I'd scavenged out of a big shipping crate that I had. And I wanted to build this thing just as dirt cheap as I possibly could. Okay, so the fuselage ended up being wood that was stripped down from 2x4s and 1x6s, and then I used some little 1/8" dowel rods as the cross bracing in it. And overall, I mean, for the size airplane it was pretty light. I don't want to say it's as light as I can build now because I learned a lot, but 71 pounds for a 197-inch wingspan airplane is really good. I mean, my Emmaselle 2 is a 188-inch wingspan. It only weighs 60 pounds. But that was a complete balsa wood construction, and I am going to do a build video series on that. So basically you can see here, and look, I was lazy back then. You got to understand, the builder I am today is a lot different than the builder I was back then. But I stripped this 1/4 by 1/4 inch down from 2x4. I didn't even hardly even light sand it, now that I look back through all these pictures. But I did seal all of this, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so I barely sanded it, but I sure didn't. I didn't prep it like I would have today, and basically made gussets out of 1/8" ply I had left over. Used the 1/8" dowel rods for the cross bracing on the fuselage, and glued it into kind of structural points, and use the gussets to laminate too. So right here on the bottom, it doesn't show the gusset installed yet. This shows all the gussets where it gave me a little bit more surface to glue to, but it doesn't show the bottom gusset there. Some of that was 16th plywood too. So here is an interesting picture of it where I was starting to build a structure that was going to hold the rigging together, because this airplane had no spar going through the fuselage. It had the spar on the left wing, right wing, but the rigging is what held this airplane together. And the rigging worked really, really good. Like I said, I had 1,350 some flights on it. But this is the bottom post. And here's a picture of it laying on a stand with the bottom post stuck out. You can see I started to seal some of the different parts of the airplane. The reason I was doing this is because there's going to be a lot of exposed wood to the elements on the airplane, to humidity. You know, sometimes where the flying field it starts to mist or it even rains. And that's a mistake I made. When I talk about the wings on this, I'll explain to you why you really want to seal your fabric wings. Most of the stuff we can buy should have some type of a dope on it, not to shrink it, but just to fill the weave, and I'll talk about that in the wing design. But this was the supports that held the bottom post in place. And another picture there on the left wall is the wing and the horizontal stab. And I'm sealing everything up. Back in the day, I had these massive, what they called quarter scale servos, so I made some aluminum arms on them. This was the hard points for the wing to go plug into the fuselage. 2 1/4-inch quarter 20 bolts would stick in those holes. Now this is where I made a mistake, and if you've heard me talk about the test flight, this airplane flew around with the nose high, and even my spotter was yelling, "Get your nose down, you're going to stall." My wing incidences were wrong. I did not have enough positive wing incidents, so I did fly around with an airplane that looked like the nose was stuck up in the air on the first 3 flights. I did raise that front hole 3/16 of an inch, and then the plane was completely trimmed and ready to fly. I also had to make the hard points for any of the controls that were going to remove the elevators or rudders. And back then I would machine it out of nylon 6, any of the hard points that I would have, like axles or stuff run through, like in the middle of that aluminum arm there. So basically when I'd gotten to this point of the fuselage being done, I really had to make sure I was thinking about where that rigging, the control horn rigging went, to make sure it wasn't going to impede anything on the fuselage. Because sometimes in builds I get ahead of myself and I got to go up and change things. And luckily here, you know, I was fine. But I really had to think down the road what I was doing. Now, I had sealed the front firewall. This is the 3W150 on it, and this is basically the fuselage when I was pretty happy that everything was sealed on it. The landing gear on it was just wheels from my daughter's baby stroller, and my wife came home and saw the stroller with no wheels on it and said, "What did you do with the stroller?" And I said, "Our daughter's too big for the stroller," so I took the wheels for my airplane. Basically, it had an axle going all the way through with a couple of stabilizer rods and then a bungee. And this is the way the bungee looked. And that worked for 1,350 plus flights. And if you know the story, I started the whole airplane up and it vibrated too much. So I put it in storage for a couple of years, pulled it out, cut the nose off it because I had to lengthen it because I was going to put an electric motor on there. To get the CG right, I had to lengthen it. That's the reason you see sometimes a turbine airplane has long noses, because that engine weighs a lot less than a internal combustion engine. Well, the 3W150 weighed a lot more than my Hacker. So basically, this was the new front end. And you'll notice on the left and right of that box there, those weird copper things with cloth tape on it. That's where my battery slid in on the side, and then I had 2 batteries on the top. I actually hated this, and I changed it, and I'll show you in a minute. But it just didn't work right for me because I didn't like the batteries hanging on the outsides there. I was scraping them and denting them, and lipos don't like that. And this was the fuselage. Then when I cut the nose off it and lengthened it again because my CG still wasn't very good. But this was a whole new motor box I built where I could put all the batteries on the top of the fuselage. So this was me, again, just trying to get the airplane right. I cut this fuselage up and hacked it up a lot, folks. And this is going to be where my new battery tray was on top, to put all 4 batteries on top. This was a reinforcement at the joint that would glue together the existing fuselage to the new motor box. This is what it looks like from the top, that the 4 batteries would go down in there. I was able then to put my speed controller out in the air better. My speed controller never really overheated, but I liked it hanging out here in the edge. And I mean outside in the free flow of the prop blast. So that was pretty much the fuselage, everybody. The next video we're going to talk about the wing, which gets really cool because the wing I actually covered with fabric and sewed it on with the wax thread that you get from aircraft spruce. And essentially this fuselage was just super simple, everybody. I've had a lot of people say, you know, how hard would it design that fuselage? I don't know if I got the design right in the beginning because, you know, I hacked around on the fuselage to get the length of the nose right when I went to electric. With the gas engine on there, I was spot on right. But I kind of figured that out in the front end. But this airplane ended up being, to this date, one of the funnest projects I ever had because I just bought a bunch of wood from a hardware store, and I had a shipping crate that I scabbed some of the plywood from. I had some leftover 64th, 16th, and 8th inch light plywood from aircraft spruce that I use on other parts on this. So this whole fuselage, now this is like $2,006, but it only cost me about $175 to build the whole fuselage, the wings, and the stabs. So I built the entire airframe for this plane for less than $200. And the most expensive things was, and I'll talk about this when I get to the wings, was the turnbuckles for the rigging that held the wings on. Those from aircraft spruce. I needed 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I needed something like, I think, 12 of them on the airplane. And they were like $30 a piece. That was the most expensive part. Well, not including the electric system. You know, you got the hacker motor, the ESC, and the batteries. But think about that too. That hacker motor's been flying since 2008 now, I think it is. Or 2010. So I got 12 years on that motor. So thanks for watching my videos, everybody. I just want to make this a short video because the fuselage was not that exciting. It was just an open structure I made, and yeah, I mean, there wasn't that much excitement to the fuselage. I mean, laid down the 2 halves, framed them up, glued it together. It's like a big Yellow's kit, everybody. The wings, though, get a lot more complicated. And the stabs, had a lot of people say they were too big. With my math, they still worked perfect, and the airplane lasted and flew perfect. So please like and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to build my YouTube, everybody. And share my videos, because I have a lot of people that find me and say, I had no idea you did this. So I'll see you next time. Be safe, rock on, and make sure, if you're one of my longtime followers, you know I'm going to say this, take a kid flying. Kids have to be part of our radio control world, or we're not going to have a future. There's a bunch of old farts out there that just keep running them off because they either like FPV, or they like drones, or they like certain things. And bottom line is, when I was younger, everybody hated helicopters. They hated gliders when they would take up channel 16 for 30 minutes. People want to just hate and complain. Get kids involved with model airplanes. They learn physics, they learn aerodynamics, they learn science, and they learn how to get along with other people, especially those old farts that are jerks. So rock on, everybody. Be safe, take care, and I'll see you next time.